everybody. My name is Katie Weldon, and I am the Programming Director for the Mississippi Gulf Coast Chamber of Commerce. And the mission of the Chamber is to connect, inform, advocate, and develop. And we're doing that these days by these virtual events. So first, I want to say thank you so much for your support and for being here today. We really appreciate it. So the question and answer box is actually on your screen. If you hover over it, you'll see the little Q&A. Click that, and you can submit your answers anonymously. Or if you want to show your name, that's fine too. But at any time throughout the presentation, if you have any questions that come up, please feel free to type those in the box, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can in the time allotted. We also have a chat box, as you can see. Feel free to say hello or type any comments that you may have, but also be aware that the chat box is public, even if you send a private message. So keep that in mind. As a warning, there are some slides that talk about suicide statistics, so please be aware of this as we go through the presentation. And now I'd like to thank our panelists, Ms. Kay Daneault, Executive Director of the Mental Health Association of South Mississippi, and Mr. Loyal Onez, CEO of Gulfport Behavioral Health. And on that note, Kay, if you'd like to start us off.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to bring up my screen here. So just a quick few little slides to tell you guys a little bit more about Mental Health Association and what we do. You see there our mission statement, and one thing that stands out for me with our mission statement is the word positive. We had discussion about this several years back when we did some vision and mission planning, strategic planning, and some people felt like the word positive was redundant, but honestly I don't feel that it is. We left it in there because we felt like there is so much negative associated with mental health. So you think about when somebody starts to have a conversation about mental health, a lot of times people sort of back away from that. I know for us, just if I call someone and I state the name of our organization, sometimes people are like, oh, why are you calling me? So we really want to focus more on the positive and the fact that people can get better and they can be part of our society. There's 1 in 5 people in America has some sort of mental illness each year. So that's a lot of people. It's common. It's all around us. Our programs that we usually have, we have a drop-in center here in Gulfport. We're in the Bayou View area of Gulfport. And what that is it's a day program for 18 and up. We have people who come who it's just very diverse. I think the oldest person that comes currently is in his 80s, and he's just the sweetest thing. So there's a lot of fun things that happen in that program, arts and crafts and, just activities and fun things, but there's a lot of learning opportunities. We really try to encourage people to become more self-sufficient, because sometimes, and I'm a mom, I'm sure I probably would do the same thing, but sometimes families tend to coddle their family members that have a mental illness, and they don't get the opportunity to do some of the things that they may normally. And so one of the things we talk about with parents and caregivers is what's going to happen to your family member if you pass away before they do. They need to be able to know how to cook and do laundry and things like that. Another program that we do is we have a homeless outreach team that goes out into the community, tries to connect with folks who are literally living out in the streets, get them to connected to some mental health care, and get them into housing. We partner with Open Doors Homeless Coalition here in Gulfport when someone's identified, and we try to quickly get them into housing as best we can. And we actually have here, we have a HUD housing program, which is for individuals with serious mental illness who have been homeless for a year or more. And then our education, we have some different opportunities I have on another slide that we'll talk about. And then all throughout all of our programs, we just try to be a support for people. Not, sometimes I hear people say, well, do you consider that to be enabling when you're helping someone in a certain way? And, you have to know your boundaries, but really not enabling someone, but giving them the empowerment to do some things, set some goals, move forward. So I feel like that's how we really do a good job in trying to support folks. All right, let's see here. Oh, sorry. There we go. Technical difficulties. So right now, of course, we're in a different world. We're doing virtual things too. Our Facebook page is where we'll have events where these particular sign-ins for some go-to meetings are available. So you can just click right in there and join. We're doing those 3 times a week. Tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But on the left-hand side, you see where we're talking about some other things that we're doing. We actually have been trying to maintain contact with people that we serve on a regular basis, because now we feel like they're feeling even more isolated than they already were. So we're making calls to them every week, checking on them, seeing how they're doing. We've been bringing them food and care packages and all sorts of things. And then one fun thing that I've been getting to be able to do is doing some interviews with some community members, and we've got that information on our social media. So that's been really fun. But these virtual groups on Tuesday and Thursdays at 1:30, we have what's called Wellness Recovery Action Planning, and it's a national program that's based on science. It's a simple format of thinking through what kind of things work for you as far as your wellness, keeping you on track. And then thinking about if something were to happen to you, maybe you can identify a certain trigger to be whatever, bad drivers or whatever. That one always comes up, bad drivers. So think about what your triggers are, but then also think about what kind of things can you do that you can sort of have a plan for, so that that bad driver cuts you off today. You're not in the middle of road rage. You've already decided that you're going to just concentrate on your radio, or you're going to make up a little story about what might be going on with that person that made them drive the way they did, or whatever it is, whatever works for you. So those groups on Tuesday and Thursday at 1:30 go through. It's a process. Usually those groups, we do them in 2-day sessions, so it's a lot of information. And this is a great format where we can just keep rolling that same, and going and going. So no matter where you jump in, if you missed a couple of times or whatever, you're still going to get some great information. And then on Fridays at 9:30, really what that is just a check-in. What's been stressing you out? What are you doing to try to stay on track? How are you keeping it together for your kids, your family, whoever, getting your job done, all those things that are coming at us right now, that were stressful already, and now it's even more stressful. So this is just a fun little thing that I put together, just so you guys could think about. A lot of what we talk about in our wellness groups are gratitude and positive thoughts. So I know for me, sometimes I tend to automatically go to the negative, and I really have to stop myself and think about it and go, you know what? That's a bad attitude. Let's back up here for a second. So these little things, you can print these off the internet. You can make them up, whatever. Sometimes you can just have like a pack of Post-its. Write something down, stick it on your mirror. I know I have a friend, she's got Post-its on her dashboard with little positive sayings. You can email. We had someone, Nicole, in our office. Every day she had scheduled out with some sort of little positive saying. So when we got to work in the morning and opened up our email, we would have this nice little positive saying to kind of put us in that frame of mind. So, do this with your family, surprise them with some little positive sayings. Maybe, think about gratitude. I know it's hard right now, but you can think of just one thing that you appreciate about the day. Maybe before you go to bed, think through that list a little bit. It could be the simplest thing. It could be that you had to go to the grocery store, and maybe the people around you were keeping their social distancing and you were super happy about that. So that could be on your gratitude list. All right, let's see. And then also another, so I mentioned wellness recovery action planning. Those are the 1:30 Tuesday, Thursday groups that we're still doing. But mental health first aid, that is also a national program that we're certified to facilitate. And it's normally an 8-hour course. But what the national organization is doing right now is they're frantically, I'm sure, working on how to get all of this information to people virtually. So it looks like what they're going to be doing is a 2-hour online that you can do at your own pace, and then 4 hours that would be a meeting like this, where you can interact with the facilitator. So we will be working on that, and we had actually received some funding before all this stuff happened, where we weren't having to charge for the information. There's a manual and things like that. So our hope is that as soon as this comes out, we'll be able to start offering this to the community so that we can continue. Because that mental health first aid is all about helping people to identify signs and symptoms that someone might be experiencing, and then how do I connect with them? How do I bring it up and talk to them and get them to some help? So it's a super, super program. We also have someone that, some of these things take up a lot of time. So if you just wanted us to come into your staff meeting or whatever, we've got someone that'll come and do just some customized kind of stuff, some wellness stuff in your office when we get back. Or now we can do it virtually. So, and then this is just our information, our address, our phone number, our social media there on Facebook. That's where you're going to find out a lot about what we're doing. And we try to really put a lot of information on our Facebook page that's educational. We get a lot of information from National Institute of Mental Health and Mental Health America. So anytime you go there, I feel like you'd find some piece of information that you can do a little research on. So I'm done.
Great. Thank you so much, Kay. That was super informative. We really appreciate that. And on that note, I will now turn it over to CEO of Gulfport Behavioral Health, Mr. Loyal Onez. Thank you. I think you're still on mute, Loyal.
Okay, Kay was already there. I couldn't even remember to unmute it. There we go. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Loyal Onez. I'm the CEO over at Gulfport Behavioral Health. We are located at right north of I-10 on 49 next to the post office. So the building is kind of nondescript, set back off the roadway, but we've got a lot of signage out there, and we are ecstatic to be here and be serving the Gulfport and greater coastal Mississippi community. I put up a couple of important notes here. And because when we look at the stress and anxiety and social isolation that has come with COVID-19 and our stay at home and stay safe at home orders and all of those things that I said to someone just a few minutes ago, maybe an hour ago, it feels like a second and forever at the same time that we've been doing this. This came to all of us somewhat unexpectedly. We heard about it and suddenly it was upon us, and our lives have changed significantly. And with that change has come a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of social isolation as we're staying in place, as we're doing those things, as we moved from groups of 200 to groups of 50 to groups of 20, and now groups of 10, and now we're back to 20 as long as it's outside. We are social creatures, and we like to be out and interconnecting with other people. And add to that the number of jobs that have been lost, the number of people who have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring. And as we watch the news and see the numbers continue to climb and change, and the media plays up all that COVID is, it produces a lot of that stress and anxiety. And with stress and anxiety, normal stress and anxiety, we see a lot of things in the community. I'm going to give you a couple of the numbers that Kay has already given you. 1 in 5 adults and 1 in 6 adolescents deal with a mental health concern each year. 40% of all suicides, are up 40% in just the past 17 years. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the US. But what we do know, and we can talk about this in our question and answer piece, is talking about suicide doesn't cause suicide. Talking about suicide and whether or not someone is feeling this way often helps alleviate the pressure that someone might have with those internal thoughts that they're trying to deal with on their own and normalizing it. So one of the questions that came up in preparing for this was, so what changes have we made? We are a psychiatric inpatient facility that does some outpatient programming, that was doing partial and IOP programming, that had a med monitoring programming happening here at the facility. So what did we do to begin to protect our patients, begin to protect our staff from what was brought upon us rather quickly? Well, one of the very first things that we did was we installed a tent out front under our carport and immediately began doing some testing. And that started with temperature testing and with some questioning of anyone who came to the facility. We increased our facility cleaning. We increased the frequency of the cleanings happening in the facilities, the areas that we were cleaning at the facilities. We have followed all of the CDC recommendations basically from day one on this. And we started adding a daily COVID team meeting with all of the leadership in the building, where we were checking on, do we have the resources in place that we need? Do we have the proper equipment in place? What is our inventory on things? I'm sure all of you have been to the supermarket when this all hit and suddenly we were out of chicken. And no one can still find, Clorox or Lysol wipes. And where did all the hand sanitizer go? And weren't we using hand sanitizer before? So we started looking at those things and monitoring as a facility, that we made sure we had a proper supply of items, and that if we didn't have them and we had issues with whether or not we could run out of supplies, how were we going to source those supplies? We also started looking at our disaster protocols. What were we doing as a team on a daily basis to make sure our patients felt safe, our staff felt safe, and that we were moving forward and meeting the needs of the community? So one of those was, we took one of our leadership team and asked them to start working from home in case there was an outbreak of COVID for some reason in the building and other members of leadership started going down. We would have weekly and bi-weekly leadership meetings where we would all together in our conference room. We were clearly not social distancing pre-COVID. So instead, we moved our meetings to Zoom meetings, and even with that, asked one of our leadership team to begin to work from home, so that if others became sick and couldn't be here, we would continue to have consistent leadership for the facility. We stopped contractors and vendors from visiting the facility unless it was an emergency repair, if our HVAC had gone down, or if we were having issues with our fire suppression system. Luckily, we had none of those concerns, so we were able to eliminate the vendors and contractors from coming into the building. And then we eliminated all non-essential services here in the building. We stopped doing our partial program on site. We stopped doing our IOP on site. I stopped doing our med monitoring here, and made sure that as we were wrapping those things up, that any people who were involved in those programs had a supply of medication that would carry them out for at least a month, if not 2 or 3 months, so that we would be able to meet their needs and put plans in place that if they had problems before we could reopen. For our patients, we have a quadruple screening process for those who are coming to the building. We screen at the phone call. I've had to have repairmen come out to my home, and you start hearing questions of, we have to ask this: have you had anyone in your home with a fever? Have you had anyone in your home with people with a fever? But we started screening on the phone before people came to our facility, asking those questions. Then at the front door, we did a temperature screening. Once that was cleared, when they came inside, we did a secondary screening at intake before anyone could be admitted to the unit. And then finally, even after admission to the unit, did another screening and do daily temperature readings with all of our patients, because we know that some people can be asymptomatic and or develop 3-4 days later once they've been introduced to the virus. So we started doing all of that, and we started looking at individuals who may have traveled to areas that were hotspots and eliminating those. We also eliminated and ceased in-person visitation, with very few exceptions that needed to be approved at my level. But to make up for that, we've extended phone hours for our patients so that they have more phone time to talk with their families. And we even now have the capability of using a setup much like this, Zoom, to do video conferencing, to incorporate families in treatment teams, to incorporate families in visitation so that they can see their loved ones that are here. I've personally had friends who had family in the hospital and they couldn't visit their family in the hospital. And we understood that that caused increased anxiety. So for our facility, we were able to incorporate Zoom. So while they couldn't be in person with their family member, they could still see them, talk to them, and feel like they were to some degree connected to them. We started using virtual technology to do patient assessments. So individuals wouldn't have to come from long distances away just to figure out whether or not they could be admitted to our facility. So we made connections with a number of organizations and facilities in the community where we could do evaluations of their patients remotely using the Zoom technology. And we also finally restricted non-essential personnel who are working here in the facility. You've always got people in medical records and billing in those areas from being in patient areas. There was no need to expose the patients to others potentially being in their area that didn't need to be there. And finally, for our staff, we followed all of the CDC recommendations. We were able to source PPE. Nobody knew what that was. A few weeks ago, personal protective equipment. We've been able to make sure that we've got enough of that on site. We've never been without any of the items. We do the full screening of the staff as we do guests of the building. All of us have a single point of entry where we get our temperature taken and a review of our other criteria every single day when we arrive at work. Any staff who had a fever had to self-quarantine and be symptom-free for 72 hours before they could return to work. And when time came and the CDC recommended it, we actually began to encourage our staff to wear masks in client care areas. We held off on that for as long as we could because we didn't want our clients to perceive in any way that we thought that they could give us something. And in reality, it's the absolute opposite of that. We did it to protect our patients and make sure that even if somebody had gotten through and was asymptomatic, we weren't sharing it with our patients while they were here receiving care for their mental health. So, some of the things that we've done, some of the actions that we've put in place is I started sending out to all of our staff daily communications. We moved all of our meetings from face-to-face to virtual. We continued to have our daily processing. We opened up our cafe to all of our staff for free meals and even encouraged staff when there was a question about food availability to, even if they weren't working, they could come in, please come in, have a meal. Last week, we provided meals to the Gulfport Police Department and Fire Department. We've been trying to do things to kind of keep up morale and keep people at least feeling some level of normalcy. So we've done barbecues, we've done ice cream for staff. We actually went out and purchased some gift certificates from local businesses to try and support them, even while they were limping through during this terrible time, and yet encourage our staff. So we went out and we did a week of gift certificate giveaways so that they could use those gift certificates when facilities were reopened. I already mentioned the virtual assessments we're doing, and just really overall trying to make sure our patients felt a level of normalcy while they were here getting treatment, so they weren't focused on those other things in the community and they could focus on their own care. We started our stress and anxiety hotline. I'd like to say that it was an original idea, but our business director of business development and I had ran into each other, and we had both just seen a commercial where they were starting an anxiety hotline over in New Orleans, and thought we need to get this up and running for our own community. So we were the first in the community to do that. We've accelerated our postings on Facebook and online, and making sure that we had a presence there. And I've really worked closely with the local media and press to make sure that they were getting the information they needed to make sure that everyone in the community had good, solid, positive information, and overall a general awareness of what's going on. Because in the work we do, communication is essential. We did a stress and anxiety tips and tricks for people to make sure that they had some structure in their day, that they continued to do hobbies, develop hobbies, do ideas that were distracting from focusing on COVID. It's been difficult. You know, everywhere you look, everything you talked about, every news channel, it was COVID 24/7. And I started recommending to our staff and to others in the community, try your best to limit it to 30 minutes a day. Break it up into 10-minute chunks, watch the national news at night for your 30 minutes, but don't overdo it, because it's the same stories that we're getting over and over again, and all it does is increase our anxiety. Simple breathing. Take some deep breaths, focus on your breathing, maybe do some exercise. There's lots of free apps out there, free. I know Beachbody was free or low cost for a while. Planet Fitness was doing free presentations on their Facebook page. And as I said, turn off the news. We hear enough about it, we see enough about it, we get inundated enough with it, that we need to sometimes unplug, get away from it, and finally verify what we're hearing. Make sure what we're hearing is true. There's enough rumors that get out there that become truth, that we don't need to become paranoid over it. And we have to accept that we will return to a new sense of normalcy. It will not be like it once was. There will be changes in our world, and we can begin to accept and adapt to what those changes may be, even if we don't know what the new normal will look like. I can almost bet you that we'll see a lot more virtual technology happening. We'll see a lot more meetings like this. We'll see a lot more virtual opportunities, which is not necessarily a bad thing. We can see improved access and improved speed in getting access to those things by being able to do it virtually, and eliminating some of the worries, especially in the field that we're in, around how do I get access to it, because it'll be more readily available in front of you on your phone, either just telephonically or on our smartphones, on our screens and our tablets. And in the end, we'll be here through it all to make sure that the community gets their needs met and gets their questions answered. So I'll send this back to you, Katie.
Great information, Loyal. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank our CEO, Ms. Adele Lyons, for being here. We do have a couple of questions prepared for you both. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions, please use the question and answer box and also the chat box. I see we have a few coming in. But just to get us started, Kay, I'll start with you. In the business community, how can we ease the fears associated with our employees returning to work?
So I really liked the slide that Loyal had about all the communication that they're doing. I think that's super important because if you're not telling your employees how you feel about things, what you're doing to make sure they're safe, all those, just everything, then they're making things up in their mind about what might be going on, and that might not match up to what you're doing. So I think they're doing a fantastic job of just putting the information out, making sure that people understand that, we want to go by the guidelines, make sure everybody's safe, but, sometimes business still has to continue. I think that's one big thing. Another thing is giving people the opportunity to tell you what they're feeling. So just listening and having some empathy. You might not agree with what they're saying, or, sometimes you might feel a little defensive, or to be careful about being judgmental. But sometimes all someone needs is just that person to hear what they're thinking and what they're struggling about. And once they get it out, sometimes they already start to feel better. So I think just listening to people and having that opportunity. One of the things that we're doing is on Mondays, we're having everybody call in for one of these meetings. And the first thing we start off with is just, hey, what did you do this weekend? And everybody gets the chance to talk about what they're doing, how they might be feeling, what's going on with their family, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like it's really been helpful for us to stay connected and feel better about what's going on. And then some employers, I know the casinos do, and some other places here locally have an EAP, an employee assistance program. And I encourage employers to get the information out to everyone about those programs and try to make sure they understand that it is anonymous. So a lot of those have the opportunity for you to call in to a mental health professional or maybe a finance professional, different types of things. Just depends on what the program is. But those things are anonymous. And sometimes we'll hear people think that their supervisor is going to find out, it's going to affect their job or whatever. So I think making sure that you're communicating to them that those things are anonymous, then people feel comfortable being able to call in and trying to get that help.
Absolutely. Great answer. Loyal, question to you. You covered this a little bit in your presentation. What steps are you taking to ensure the health and safety of your providers, inpatient and outpatient treatment?
I think the most important thing is that we start at the front door. We have been, knock on wood, very lucky to this point, not have a single case, but we take every case as important, every symptom as important. We take the temperature as they arrive at the building, and that we have a single point of entry. So everybody comes through the same location to make sure that we're getting every single person who enters our building the care that they need. And we make sure those that there are questions on get out for the treatment and the testing that they need.
Absolutely. Thank you. Kay, one more question for you. What services can you link the business community for employee wellness?
So I talked about the virtual groups that we're doing. I think those have been really helpful. The people that have been on those calls have told me that they really appreciate it. And, I think sometimes people are afraid to participate in things like that. Kind of touched on this before because they feel we have this stigma around mental health. And I don't want people to be afraid that, oh, if I call in for this group, people are going to think that I have something going on, that I have a diagnosis. Well, even if you did, that's okay. It's okay for these things to happen. But we're opening this up for anyone. So if even if you're not feeling stressed and you just want to call and tell us what you've been doing, so now you're not stressed out, that's great, because everybody else can learn some information. And really that's what it's all about, is us being able to have that opportunity for some conversation and not feel so isolated. Even if, sometimes there might be something that you're feeling or you've done, and you don't want your family to know, maybe you ate all the ice cream last night and they haven't figured it out yet. So you can tell all of us and we won't judge you. So yeah, I think those virtual groups, if you guys want to hop on those have been great. There's also lots of other organizations that are doing those kinds of things. So I know that Mental Health America, we're the state affiliate for them, and then National Institute of Mental Illness, the National Association for Mental Illness, all these different groups, organizations are trying to have different types of calls. So you can even go to their websites and find all kinds of information. If you call here, our number is 228-864-6274, and you're trying to figure out how to navigate, we can help you. We get those calls all the time where people are just like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? What's my first step? And so then we try to help them navigate to Gulfport Behavioral Health or some other provider, that might be a match. Just give them pieces of information. Sometimes when we're in our own world, we think that everybody knows all the information that you have already, and people are lost sometimes. So, call us, call Gulfport Behavioral Health. They have the hotline, and those are just great pieces of great places to get some information.
Absolutely, Kay. Thank you so much for sharing that. Loyal, one more question for you. What steps can we take with family members to identify symptoms of depression due to job loss and isolation?
I think the first thing to do is realize that it's normal and that we're all going through this. So what you've got to look for are those areas that become extreme. Are they spending all of their time in bed? Are they spending an excessive amount of time perseverating? I think a lot of people's appetite is increasing as they follow stay-at-home requirements. But are you seeing that they're eating less or eating more, that they won't get up and move, that they have a lack of motivation? And the thing I would say most is talk about it, because talking about it normalizes it. Talking about it lets everybody know that it's okay, that if you're having issues, to get that out. This is a perfect opportunity for all of us to tear down the stigma that has surrounded mental health for years, because nobody wanted to talk about it. And now we can all associate with it. We can all connect with it. We can all better understand what stress is like. And what it does to our bodies. We can all better understand what anxiety really feels like. And start the conversation. That's where and know that you've got places to call, like the Mental Health Association or Gulfport Behavioral Health, that if it starts getting more than you can handle, call us. Call either of us and we can walk you through. Just because we do assessments doesn't mean those assessments are just for admission. We want to be, all of us in the field want to be available to help you navigate these unusual waters. And there is nothing wrong with acknowledging that these are unusual times and we just don't have the answers.
Absolutely. And the work that each of you are doing with your businesses is so vital to this community. So I just want to go ahead and say thank you on behalf of the Gulf Coast Chamber of Commerce for your membership as well, and just for all the work that you're putting into this community. Thank you 1,000 times. We do have a few questions, and both of you spoke on the stigma with mental health. And one of the questions is, how do we dispel the negative stigma associated with mental health in our country? And do you see a future where mental health checkups become as common as a physical checkup? Would either one of you like to answer that first?
God, I hope so. I mean, it's so important, that the day where I'm going to my doctor, whether it be my therapist or my private practitioner, is common and okay and accepted, and we're not afraid to say it. You know, people will go for their annual physical and go see their doctor once a year and get their blood work done. People will go to the dentist. I mean, hopefully people who are out in the sun a lot go to the dermatologist. And we do that to just check up and make sure that we are okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing the occasional checkup on your brain too. You know, I've always looked at mental health or at health as a tripod. You know, we have to look at our physical health, our mental health, and our spiritual health. And because remove any one of those legs and the others give way. So if we just accept that it becomes normal and that we should do our annual checkup in all those areas, I think we'd be better off.
Kay, did you want to touch on that as well?
Well, I agree 100%. I think that right now we're getting a little bit of more of a feeling of what someone might be going through if they're experiencing a mental illness. And some of the things that we're having to do right now are things that sometimes folks are experiencing all the time. If they're already living alone and they have depression, then they're definitely becoming more and more isolated. You know, someone maybe is unable to drive anymore, so they're not getting out. So some of the things I think that we're going through right now because of this, hopefully will allow us to have more empathy, because an illness of your brain, first of all, it's not selective. So it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter, you know, where you are in social media or, you know, a movie star, whatever. Mental illness can occur, and it's not discriminating, I guess is what I'd like to say. So you never know when it could happen to you or someone in your family. And I think sometimes we're just living in a little bubble and we just have no idea that people are going through things. So I think hopefully it's an opportunity, and you know, like Lowell said, let's make it part of our annual checkup.
Absolutely. There's got to be a positive to come out of this. We are going to make this a priority. We have to. Something has to happen. Thank y'all so much. Another question we have is how to offer support to coworkers who are stressed or anxious with our new normal of working from home. Would either one of you want to start with that?
Well, so we're doing some of that here. And I think, again, staying in communication with people so that they know what's expected, and know what they can and can't do. Some of the things that we do here, they're so in person that the folks that do those things, they can't do that at home. So we had to kind of come up with some different things for them to do. So rather than having that in person, now they have a list of phone numbers and they're contacting those people each week. So just really kind of being a little creative. But I think maybe the main thing is to try to stick to a routine. So if you normally did, you know, whatever, ABC every morning, try to stick to those things as best you can. Now we know, of course, you know, if you're at home, you're not going to be able to stop by Starbucks. So maybe this is the good time to try out some kind of different coffee beans that you get at the grocery store or whatever, and start doing those things at home. I think it's also a great opportunity. I know a lot of people have kids at home right now, to show them how they can cope with these things too. Keep them on a routine also, because they're feeling some of the same stuff that the adults are. They're out of their element. They miss their friends. They miss their routine. They know that a certain time they get to go to recess or whatever. So let them do some of that stuff. So I think, yeah, trying to stick with a routine as much as possible and staying in communication with the rest of your team.
Absolutely. Will, did you want to add to that?
I think one of the big things during this period of social isolation has been the distance. And as I said earlier, we're social creatures. So look for other ways that you can connect with those people, to be available, to listen. Have a virtual happy hour. You know, you might be stuck in your home, but you know, everybody can get a free Zoom account. You can use Facebook, you can use FaceTime, but use that opportunity to just make a phone call, an old-fashioned phone call, send somebody a text to stay connected and help them also feel connected. There is absolutely nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. I think we spend a lot of time right now saying, I don't know. And the minute we think we do, tomorrow it'll change. So it's okay to not know the answers and just join in that without perseverating on that, without saying, I don't know, and it's only going to get worse from here, is how to say, I don't know, and be positive. I don't know, but you know, what I do know is we'll get through this together. Well, I don't know, but I'm sure we're going to survive this and get out of this and be better for it in the future.
Absolutely agree. And those positive affirmations really do help. Absolutely. We do have somebody that said, what would you recommend for the elderly? This person works in an assisted living facility, and it seems that they're really struggling to process this. In addition, they are really scared due to what they watch on TV.
I think that goes back to something I said earlier is think about how much time you're actually spending watching the news, or how much time you can spend not watching news. What other things can you do? What other activities can you develop? And sometimes reminding a lot of these older people, they've been through tough times and they're still here and they've come out of it, and developing those positive affirmations on, so we're here today and we're going to be here tomorrow, and thinking about the things they can do and helping them connect with the loved ones, are all important things, because the older we get, the farther we feel distanced from the world around us.
Exactly. Good point. Kay, did you want to touch on that as well?
Well, I had a conversation with someone recently about music, and in general, music is so uplifting for so many people. And I think that maybe having some music, allowing people to, if they're in a home, like you're talking about assisted living, maybe in their room they're able to have just a small radio and let them pick the music that they like. They grew up in a different era than probably, the people working there did. So let them have some of that joy that they experience, because music can bring you back to a memory, a good memory, sometimes a bad memory. But sometimes a good cry is good too. And I think something that we can do as community members, maybe you think about, and now everything's, I rarely get actual mail in my mailbox anymore. But the other day, a friend of mine who has, her grandson is learning how to write currently, and he's interested in what's happening in the mail. So she asked if anybody wanted to be his pen pal. So I thought, how fun is that? But seniors, they're used to their whole life. The mail is everything. And so how great would it be if we just took 5 minutes to write out a little something to someone and pop it in the mail to, a nursing home or something like that, that somebody could get that nice little card. I think that would be really cool.
Absolutely agree. And that's something easy we can do, like you said, Kay. Thank you both. Another question, and Kay, you kind of touched on this, is what can you recommend ways parents can help their children cope right now?
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of difficult. Depends on what age they are. The smaller they are, it's their understanding levels is not there. But I think back to Loyal's statement about keeping the TV time, the news, and all those things to a minimum, because to a child, when they hear something, it's like that's happening right now. Sometimes their understanding of cause and effect or future and things of that sort are difficult. So, talking to them about what's happening and what your plan is to keep your family safe. We're washing our hands a lot. Remember, we're washing our hands, and that's why we're cleaning down the counter all the time and the doorknobs, and wearing our mask when we go out or whatever, so that they understand. And two, giving them some of that responsibility so that they feel like they're taking part in keeping their family safe. So maybe their job is to wipe down all the doorknobs every day with the, soapy rag or whatever.
Love
So
that.
that they feel, and they're connected and they're doing something to help too. But again, I feel like keeping them busy and making sure they're getting out into some sunshine. Kids really need to be outside some and run around and get some of that energy out.
Totally agree. Loyal, anything to add to that?
I think Kay did a great job. You know, we want to keep them involved without keeping them anxious. We want to make sure that they feel like they're contributing without feeling like they have to worry, and developing good habits with them, continuing to have structure in their lives. You know, if they were used to Monday through Friday getting up and going to school, then, you know, continue to have get ups in the morning, have bedtimes, and structure their day, because as much as they balked at it, it was a sense of normalcy that they had, and we want to continue to provide them with that sense of normalcy and yet have play. And now that they can get out, get them out in the yard, get them out in the neighborhood, take them for those walks, walk the legs off the dog, and just let them feel, as Kay said, feel the sunshine on their face.
Absolutely. I know I need the sunshine too. So absolutely agree with that. The last question that we have is, do you, either of you have volunteer opportunities within your facilities or things that are ways that we can give back?
So for us, we do, and certainly a little different when our programs are up and running and we have people in the building. Sometimes we have volunteers that come and help with those programs. But one of the things that we're trying to keep up with is there are still people out there in our community that are living in the woods, living in tents and behind buildings and things like that. We don't see them like we do in bigger cities where, those tents might be lined up right, on the highway or whatever, but they're out there. And so we can always use non-perishable food items so that we can give those out. We do like little snack bags for them. If anybody wanted to do like a little food drive, that would be great. We also will give them just like a little $5 gift card for, Subway or something, or a local restaurant or something, so that they can have that to get a quick bite to eat and, something to drink. So I feel bad. They're out there in the elements still, and there's a lot of organizations trying to help homeless individuals get into housing. But sometimes when you add mental illness on top of it, it's just really hard for them to be able to navigate. And even when they get into housing, trying to maintain it, with their neighbors and everything. So those are some opportunities we have.
That's great. Loyal?
Right now, we don't have any volunteer opportunities. We've eliminated the vendors and others coming into the facility, and because we're a Joint Commission accredited hospital, we have all kinds of orientation that otherwise would need to be done. When we get back up and running, we'll be looking at developing a volunteer program to go along with some of the things we're doing. But for now, I would say be kind to each other. Pay it forward a little bit. Drop something off. Your home. If you can, bake something, drop it off. Surprise a neighbor with it and drop it off on our porch. Keep the proper social distance, and take care of each other in the community. And we'll be here to take care of those who need our level of care.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much again. Just real quick, don't forget we have events coming up tomorrow. We have Getting Real About Real Estate with Stephanie Shaw, and she is the broker owner of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Shaw Properties. And Stephanie will be giving advice to those who might be closing on residences right now, and she'll be answering your questions about leasing concerns. And if now is the best time to, even get involved in real estate. And that is tomorrow at 10:30. And then on Thursday, we have our CYP Inspire with Ms. Dorothy Wilson. She is also the Mississippi Gulf Coast Chamber of Commerce president, and she'll be talking about her career path to success, which includes her being an author, publisher, and founder of a highly successful women's conference. And on that note, that's all we have on our end. Kay, Loyal, any final thoughts?
No, just thank you so much for having us. I hope that this information was good for people. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I really appreciate just starting the conversations, because that's how stigma ends, is we start the conversation and we move forward from there. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, thank you both so much again for your membership. And on that note, thank you everybody so much for being here. If you want to register for those events I talked about, they are on our Facebook page and also on our website at mscoastchamber.com. Everybody have a great and happy Tuesday and happy Cinco de Mayo. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Kay and Loyal, so much for taking the time to do this for us and our members. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.